Hi, I'm Pastor Kenny, the lead counseling pastor at Abundant Living Family Church. Welcome to the Counseling Corner.
My name is Sanaz Mesa. I'm the director of the women's ministry here at Abundant Living Family Church. I have a master's in educational counseling, and I have a huge heart for mental health. Pastor Kenny has a huge heart for mental health too, and you come with some credentials. Why don't you share those?
Yes, I'm a board-certified crisis chaplain, 65 plus hours in critical incident stress management, continued education. I do premarital counseling, and I specialize in the blended family.
Awesome. He is absolutely our go-to guy when it comes to counseling. So today we're going to talk about crisis and crisis management. So Pastor Kenny, let's talk about it. What is crisis exactly?
Let's look at crisis as a failure to resolve a problem. Most of us, when we're faced with issues and problems, we try to resolve them. Normally, we would use what is called our coping mechanism. And when our coping mechanism doesn't work and we don't solve the problem, what we find ourselves in is we're in a crisis. Something that is beyond our ability to address, something that's beyond our ability to deal with emotionally. And so then it affects our emotions, it affects us physically and everything around us.
So what are some symptoms of crisis? How can we identify what's going on with us when we are in crisis?
One of the symptoms would be that your mental equilibrium, there I go using a $5 word, your mental equilibrium is off. You know, it's sort of like emotional vertigo. Just your ability to reason within your emotions and your feelings, it's just very foggy. You begin to experience stress, just some mental tension. You may have an attitude of panic or defeat. When you think of defeat, I think of, giving up or what's the use? This thing is not going to change. And then people who are in crisis really focus on relief. Unfortunately, some of the things that they use in trying to relieve the crisis is not healthy.
I think a lot of people right now who are watching this, they're almost a little taken aback because all of those things that you're saying, those symptoms that you're talking about when it comes to crisis, they're feeling it right now.
Absolutely.
And they're now realizing that they're going through crisis in some sort of way. So now that we've identified what crisis is and that we might be going through crisis, let's talk about actual crisis management. What does that look like? What are some tools that we can give to get through the crisis? What are some things?
Well, it's not funny. It's unfortunate that we're actually in a crisis. Our whole nation is in a crisis with the coronavirus. And so the loss of a job, the uncertainty of when this is going to lift, if they're going to ever find a vaccine. Parents are stressed and they're actually in a crisis situation now, trying to be a parent, a teacher, being able, we're forced to stay at home. And so when you're in a crisis, there's 4 things that we want to focus on. We want to focus on stabilization. We don't know when the crisis is going to lift, but we want to stabilize our emotions as much as possible. We want to begin to try to do something that will reduce the symptoms that we mentioned, that equilibrium being off, those signs of stress, that attitude of panic or defeat. Your deficiency has decreased. Just some of the normal things that you and I would be able to do in our day-to-day life, it just seems like we're swimming in peanut butter. So any of those symptoms, we want to be able to reduce those. Then we want to try to return. It's slowly. Don't rush into it, but we want to try to return to what we would call adaptive functioning. Just doing some of the natural things in life, maybe doing a load of clothes. You husbands may be cutting the grass. I know you don't like to do that, but just some of those natural...
We don't like to do the load of clothes either, though, Pastor.
Well, that's true. That's true. But those are some of the things that will help to minimize the symptoms of a crisis so that you don't feel so overwhelmed. And unfortunately, there are some times in a crisis when it's so drastic. Let's say that, there was a fire within your community, you had to be displaced. And so you're trying to wonder, what are me and my kids going to eat? Where are we going to lay our heads? And so sometimes when things get so overwhelming, then we have to begin to look for additional care and help, going to a therapist, going to have a physical, things like that.
I think it's important with what you said, Pastor Kenny, that we recognize that we might be as a whole going through a crisis right now, but like you said, all of those feelings that we notice that we personally are going through crisis so that we know how to manage the crisis itself. Because a lot of us feel overwhelmed right now. A lot of us feel that normalcy is not happening right now. And because of that, it's leading to so many different types of emotion. Recognize that we're going through a crisis, that you're going through a
Absolutely.
crisis. And don't feel like you're going through it alone. And that way you can do all of those things that you said, stabilize, try to get back to some type of a routine, even if it's doing laundry, which you don't like to do, but having some type of normalcy in your life so that you don't feel overwhelmed by the crisis that's happening around you.
I think it's important too, Sanaz, that we accept the fact that we're in a crisis. Mm-hmm. And so whenever, we act like nothing is going on around us, especially if we do it in front of people, sometimes we can put on this face or we can put on this facade. Then only when we go back home, then, we let our hair down. Excuse me, I let all of mine down. But then we go into closed doors and then we fall apart. So just acknowledging that things are different, accepting the fact that, this thing is bigger than me, allows me to then go to some resources, go to talk to people, gather with my family and friends, go into my Christian community, people who are praying for us, expecting the best for us like we are for them. Just communicating, those things are very healthy when you're in a crisis.
I think that that's really, really good wisdom. This was session 1 of 4 sessions for Counseling Corner, and we talked about crisis and crisis management. Join us for session 2, where we're going to talk about grief and loss. I hope this blessed you. I hope it helped you, and God bless.
Bye-bye.